Welcome folks. What you see before you here are a bunch of pop rivets. And what they do is they secure metal together, whether it's sheet metal or slightly thicker metal, up to, depending on which rivet you get. This is actually what they look like, and I'll be showing you the gun that applies these and makes it into a rivet. I've actually got one of these taken apart so you can see how they work. Okay, so that's basically what goes into the gun. And as you squeeze the handles together, what it does is it pulls this nail through and it creates another rivet head on the top here, and this little ball end here breaks off in here and it goes inside and it forms the other side of the rivet head. Okay, a rivet basically is like a common nail, only it has two flat heads on it in order to join two pieces of metal. Okay, now I'll show you actually what the gun looks like. We'll just get this stuff out of the way. And before I go even that far, I'll show you. They come in different sizes, shapes, materials. These ones are just, I believe, are made out of aluminum. They're fairly soft, good for general purpose work. There are two different sizes here. The one on the top of your screen there is a 3/16 diameter. Now, the hole that you drill in the metal has to match the diameter of this part here, the largest part just under the head of that rivet, just like measuring a nail, basically. So a hole is just very slightly larger than that, no bigger than you have to go, just so these will slide in. Okay. This is a 32nd smaller. Like I say, this is 3/16, so this should be 5/32 of an inch diameter. They come really small, and they actually come a little bit bigger, as well as a different length. Okay, depending on how thick the two pieces of metal are, or even multiple pieces of metal are. You have to make allowance in order for it to create its the rivet head on the other end when you draw this through with the gun. So there's different lengths you can get, like I say, different materials. I've got them when they're smaller diameter for using for doing body work rather on vehicles with rust holes. Cut a patch and bang it in there so it's below flush. And then I got stainless steel ones, and they actually had a little countersunk head on there, so you wouldn't have this big bulgy head thing sticking out as far, meaning that you'd have to use a lot more body filler. You want to keep the depression before you add your body filler as small as possible. A good body guy will tell you that too. The less body filler you put on a body repair job when doing auto body work, the better. Okay, here's the actual gun. I'm just going to slide it into the frame now. That's what they look like. This one is somewhere between $10 and $20. They open up like that. There's a little handle there for storage so that it opens up like so, and you just, I'll actually show you the operation. I'm not going to put one in all the way because there's little grabbing teeth that are actuated by this upper handle. It'll draw that kind of nail looking thing in there. So that just goes into this little hole here. You have to match, looks like a nail, okay? You have to match that to the orifice size or the hole size. Okay, and there's an assortment here. There's 4 different sizes, and you have to get your rivet that you're going to use and find the one that'll barely go into that hole. You want the tightest fit possible and still slide in there. And there's little, where is that wrench hiding? Now right there's a little wrench that you can slide out of that little rubber handle there, and then you can get at these other I don't know what you'd call those. Just basically you take this one out with the wrench and you put the appropriate size one in there for the diameter of the actual nail pulling part. Okay, and it gives it something to push the top of this rivet head on in order to pull that little bumpy bit up and create the rivet head on the other side. Okay, so I'll just put that out of the way for a minute. I actually have, I disassembled one of these things here to show you how they actually operate. There's the actual rivet part right there. Get the lighting on it just right. It looks like a short nail, but it's got a hole in the middle of it. Okay, that's the actual rivet. And the other part of the rivet that actually breaks off is this little bumpy bit here. It looks like a round-headed finishing nail. And then on here, I don't know if it'll show on your screen, but they've actually put a couple of little squished it down a bit so it would break off when the gun pulls it through. Okay, so what happens is this. Let's see if I get that centered up there. This actually it slides in all the way. I'll actually put it together, not all the way, so I can show you. The gun pulls this against that little nut anvil kind of thing that you put it in there. And as you pull it, the gun pulls it, this little round part goes inside this, there's a hole through this thing, and it pulls through and it creates a bulge in here. So your two pieces of metal are underneath the preformed head, and as you draw it through with the gun, it forms the other rivet head, creating a very, very tight fit and joining those two pieces of metal. Like I say, it works really good for doing auto body work, or anytime you want to join two pieces of not so thick metal together, or multiple pieces of thinner metal if you like. And the stronger you want it, say you want it stronger, use bigger ones, more heavy duty looking things, or more of them. You can, drill as many holes as you want and line them up and put the rivets in there, pop rivets that is, and then you get one heck of a strong joined unit there. They actually make race cars a few stages down from Formula One, I believe it. Can't really remember. It's sort of like the Toyota Atlantic kind of series they used to run. I believe it was a March chassis from the past, and the whole race car looked like a little Formula One car, open wheel car, and it's what they call a monocoque frame, and I believe that one was all done with like mostly sheet metal and stuff, and it was all riveted together. Okay, so that's how strong rivets can get when you actually apply enough of them and engineer it properly. You can actually build a race car with a bunch of rivets. If you want to go into the past, all the old iron bridges that used trusses and whatnot, if you looked at some of the old architecture with the bridges, you'll see that a lot of them are riveted. Even old ships, steamships, even some that went to diesel engines and whatnot, the hulls were actually riveted with big rivets, nothing small like this, mind you. So there's a little bit of nostalgia for you. Okay, now what I've got here to actually show you how we're going to make this thing work now that you know how it operates is I've got a couple pieces of galvanized sheet metal, and I've already prepared these two strips here. Okay, just sheet metal, and I've drilled a couple of holes in here. I don't know if they'll show up in the video. Where's my pencil? But I've got them, I drilled them while they were together so these holes would line up. So I got two in this piece of sheet metal and two in this piece of sheet metal. So they do line up. I drilled these while they were clamped together so that I know they will line up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to bring my vise into the picture. Little drill press vise. Just give me a sec while I line it all up for the video. And I've got a couple of rivets here. Hopefully I got the right size ones. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just insert these in there, and hopefully they'll stay put while I do this operation to show you what's going on. So I'm just going to clamp this into the drill press vise to hold it, and I'm going to actually put it on edge so it'll show up in the video and give you a view as to what actually happens when they form these rivets and put these two pieces of metal joined together in a permanent fashion. Okay, so I'll just line this up here. Okay, so I've got the two rivet shanks, the part that go into the gun there, and as I apply the gun, normally you would put this into the gun first. It would insert all the way up until you see that that rivet head, preformed rivet head, goes right up against there, and as you work the gun, it has some grabbers inside there, and it really grabs into the shank of this thing and draws it through as you apply pressure to the handle. The bigger the rivet, the more force you have to use on these handles. Like I'm going to have to use considerable force to get these ones to work even. And these are the actual rivet diameter where it goes through the metal is 5/32 of an inch. Okay, so we'll just apply it here like so, and you just kind of wiggle and jiggle until you get it all the way down there. Now this might get a bit shaky because I'm applying quite a bit of force here to get these things to go. So, and you'll hear it go pop. That's why they call them pop rivets. It makes kind of a popping sound when it breaks that nail head off and creates the formed rivet head on the other side. So I'll squeeze these handles together now and listen for it. Sometimes you have to go down another time there because the amount that it has to pull back, and you really have to use a lot of pressure, and there you go, it breaks that nail head off. So that's one set. Sometimes this one's coming out, sometimes they get stuck in there, and they have a provision on the other end where the grabbing mechanism, you can get a plain tip screwdriver and take this out if you have a thing jammed, just like a staple gun kind of an affair. Or if these sometimes they get jammed, you can't get the new rivet in there, so you just take this mechanism out of this end, and then you can free up the broken pin part. This is the part that breaks off, and this is discarded, or you can save them for whatever you like. Recycle them. There's one rivet head, and in a couple of minutes here I'll take this out of the vise and show you the actual how it's formed. Okay, so this kind of got a ratcheting mechanism. Like I say, sometimes you won't get it in one stroke, depending if it's a small rivet. Chances are one pull on the handles will be an adequate amount of advance for this to come through. But the larger rivets, sometimes you have to do it several times because of the length that it has to come through the rivet part. So we go on to the second one. It's not going to pop, so I got to redo it. Slide it down again, and then just squeeze, and it goes pop, break, make a lot of noise. Okay. This one's being good to me. I actually got two of them that just actually came out. Sometimes they do get jammed in there, but if they're not jammed too bad, sometimes you can just get another rivet and it'll push the broken nail head or nail part, the plain shaft part, through. Sometimes it'll just poke through when you put the new rivet in. Other times, like I say, you have to remove the grabber end of this mechanism in here to free it. They're very, very simple in operation. It's quite an ingenious design, actually. This one has got some complications with this little wire hold together thing here. Anyways, there's the tool. Okay, that's the tool. There's the different nuts that you'd put in here, and like I say, you have to match the hole size up with the size of rivet shank that you're using. You always want to use the proper one. If you don't have one of these the appropriate size, then you might have to go to a different size rivet. But most of them that come with these, they come with an assortment. They came with, I think it was about 4 bags of different size rivets, all aluminum ones. And they actually fit in each and every one of these. And like I say, you just take the wrench, and if you don't have the right one in there to start with, you just take the wrench out of the handle here, and then just undo it. Or you could use a little crescent wrench or whatever on there, and combination wrench, whatever you like. But this one came with a little wrench for it. So there's the actual gun. Okay, Pop Rivet Gun, if you will. That's what I've always called them anyway. Got a nice little wrinkle finish paint job on it. Okay, we'll put. There's actually now that I notice it, there's some markings on here. It might even be in metric. I'm not really too sure. I've never gone that far. I've always just put the shank of the pop rivet in there to make sure it just barely goes in the hole. So park that to the side, and then I'll remove this these two pieces of sheet metal that were just pop riveted together, and I can show you actually how they were deformed. They were formed rather. But as you see here, on there, you can probably see a bulgy bit there. Let's get the lighting right. You can see if I can hold it still enough. I'll use my hand as a bit of a background there. You can see it's kind of bumpy on that side. That was the side that the little round part of that nail head that got drawn through. It creates the rivet head. It's not the prettiest looking thing. Like if you're doing auto body work or something with it, you just make sure you had enough room behind it where you're fixing your rust hole or whatever, and then you wouldn't see these anyway. But then you've got the nicely finished heads. These are the factory finished side here, preformed side before you put it in there. And they do bump out a bit. Like I say, you can get countersunk ones. I've used smaller stainless steel ones, and they don't stick up that far. If you had a thicker piece of metal, you could actually drill and countersink so the rivet heads would be at flush or even below the surface. Okay, so there you have it, folks. That's what pop riveting is all about. There's two pieces of sheet metal. I'll even open it up and show you what we've got here. So there you go. See there? They're all joined together now. So there's my demonstration for today. And I hope that for those of you who haven't seen how pop riveting or even know about pop riveting, that's how it's done. And it's very inexpensive. Like I say, you got that. I've got this pop riveting gun and 4 bags of assorted pop rivets for under $20. Okay, a few years back, mind you. But if you want to, you can get them probably a bigger set if you're doing more heavy-duty application. Or I wouldn't go any smaller than this one here, because it takes a considerable amount of strength when you're using the larger diameter rivets to get that nail to break off and form the rivet head. So there you have it, folks. There's pop riveting for today. Hope you enjoyed it. Have yourself a nice day. Take care, and bye for now.